Imagine someone hands you a set of blueprints today. Architectural drawings of extraordinary precision. Every door measured, every courtyard dimensioned, every staircase counted step by step. The architect has specified the thickness of the walls, the height of the thresholds, the orientation of every chamber. It is a technical document of almost obsessive meticulousness, but there is a problem. When you begin to transfer the measurements onto any real terrain, you realize something unsettling. The building described is so vast, it does not fit anywhere on the known earth. Its outer courtyard alone measures 500 cubits per side, more than 250 meters in each direction. The architect's name is Ezekiel, and the document is written in the Bible. What nobody tells you is this: Ezekiel was not a visionary detached from reality when he wrote these chapters. He was a priest who had personally touched the stones of the Temple of Solomon, and he had been taken prisoner. Today we're going to understand what he actually saw, and why it still matters. If this kind of content interests you, subscribe. The button is right below the video. To understand Ezekiel's temple, we first need to understand Ezekiel himself, not as an ethereal prophet floating in sacred space, but as a specific man, at a specific moment, with a specific wound. Ezekiel was a priest, son of Buzi, of the Levitical line. He had been trained from childhood to serve in the Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem. He knew every chamber of that temple. He had touched its stones, breathed the smoke of its sacrifices, recited its liturgies. The temple was not for him an abstract theological concept. It was the place of his vocation, the reason for his priestly existence. And then came Nebuchadnezzar. In 597 BC, the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II launched his first mass deportation of Judah. Among the thousands of Jews taken captive to Babylon was Ezekiel, probably a young man at that point. The deportees of the first wave were mostly craftsmen, priests, officials, and people of some status. They were settled in colonies beside the canals of Babylon, where they could work and maintain a community structure, but the trauma was real and irreversible. Ezekiel was more than 1,000 kilometers from Jerusalem, from the temple, from the only land where, according to the theology of his era, it was possible to properly serve God. The first chapter of Ezekiel is one of the most extraordinary, baffling, and debated texts in all the sacred literature of the world. Ezekiel describes a windstorm from the north, a cloud of fire with a brightness around it, 4 living creatures, each with 4 faces, of a man, a lion, a bull, and an eagle, wheels within wheels, full of eyes. And above everything, something like a sapphire throne, and on the throne, something with the appearance of a human figure surrounded by light like a rainbow. This vision, called in rabbinic tradition the Merkavah, the divine chariot, was so disturbing to Jewish masters that the Talmud establishes it must not be taught publicly. But the central point is this: Ezekiel does not receive the vision of a serene and static God. He receives the vision of a God who moves, of a divine glory, not confined to the temple in Jerusalem, that can travel on wheels to Babylon, to where his exiled people are. That in itself is a revolutionary message. The great temple vision comes much later. Ezekiel chapter 40, verse 1. In the 25th year of our exile, at the beginning of the year, on the 10th day of the month, 14 years after the city was struck down, on that very day, the hand of the Lord was upon me, and he brought me to the city. Do the arithmetic. The 25th year of Ezekiel's captivity, 14 years after the destruction of Jerusalem, places us in 573 BC. Ezekiel has been in exile for more than 2 decades. The Temple of Solomon has been in ruins for 14 years. Jerusalem has been razed. In that context of total destruction and prolonged exile, God takes Ezekiel in a vision, transports him to the land of Israel, deposits him on a very high mountain, and shows him something that leaves him speechless. A city to the south, and a man whose appearance was like bronze, with a linen cord and a measuring rod in his hand, standing in the gateway. And the man says to him, Son of man, look with your eyes, and hear with your ears, and set your heart upon all that I shall show you. For you were brought here in order that I might show it to you. Declare all that you see to the house of Israel. Before entering the temple itself, we need to understand the unit of measurement the angelic figure uses to guide Ezekiel. Ezekiel 40:5 specifies that the man's measuring rod was 6 cubits long, each cubit being a cubit plus a handbreadth. That is, a long cubit of 7 handbreadths, not the standard cubit of 6 handbreadths. The Hebrew long cubit equals approximately 52.5 centimeters. The measuring rod, 6 long cubits, therefore measured about 3.15 meters. This technical detail is not minor. The text is indicating that the measurement system being used is specifically sacred, slightly different from the ordinary cubit of civilian life. Entry to the temple complex is through gates of extraordinary dimensions. Ezekiel describes 3 gates in the outer wall, one to the east, one to the north, and one to the south, and 3 corresponding interior gates in the inner courtyard. Each gate is described with precision: guard rooms on each side, inner vestibule, pillars, ornamentation of carved palm trees. The dimensions of each gate are imposing. The vestibule of the outer gate measures 8 cubits deep by 12 wide. The gates have a total length of 50 cubits and a width of 25 cubits, approximately 26 meters long by 13 meters wide for the gate structure alone. For a sense of scale, the monumental gates of the Temple of Solomon, considered extraordinary in their time, were significantly smaller. The gates of Ezekiel's vision are constructions on a scale without parallel in the architecture of the ancient Levant. The temple complex is organized in a series of concentric courtyards that guide the worshiper from the exterior toward the sacred interior in a progressive increase of holiness. The outer courtyard is a square of 500 cubits by 500 cubits, with the long cubit of 52.5 centimeters. This equals 262.5 meters per side. A square of almost 270 meters in each direction. The outer courtyard alone occupies more than 6.5 hectares. For comparison, the entire precinct of the Temple of Solomon on Mount Moriah was approximately 200 meters north to south and 150 east to west. The outer courtyard of Ezekiel would be considerably larger than the entire precinct of the Temple of Solomon. The inner courtyard, accessed through the interior gates, is organized around the temple building itself and measures 100 cubits north to south and 100 cubits east to west, approximately 52.5 meters per side. The central temple building follows the tripartite structure of Solomon's temple: an entrance vestibule, the holy place, and the most holy place. But the proportions have changed significantly. The vestibule, the ulam, is 20 cubits wide and 12 deep. The holy place, the hekal, is 40 cubits long and 20 wide. The most holy place, the debir, is 20 cubits per side. The building is surrounded by 3 stories of side chambers, 30 chambers on each floor, 90 inches total, serving as storage for offerings in temple service. One notable difference from Solomon's temple: in Ezekiel's description, there is no Ark of the Covenant. It is not mentioned. No object is described in the most holy place. The carved cherubim are present on the walls, described alongside palm trees, but the central space where the ark rested is empty, or more precisely, occupied solely by the presence of God Himself. One of the most debated aspects of Ezekiel's vision, especially for New Testament readers, is that the temple described includes a functioning sacrificial altar and a complete sacrificial system. Ezekiel 43:13-7 describes the altar in great detail and specifies the consecration ceremony to be performed. Chapters 44-46 describe the priestly functions, religious feasts, and regular offerings. This generates a profound theological question. If the New Testament teaches that Christ's sacrifice is the definitive and final fulfillment of the entire Old Testament sacrificial system, the letter to the Hebrews is especially clear on this point. What sense does a prophecy about a future temple with animal sacrifices make? The answers to this question have divided interpreters for centuries. Ezekiel chapter 47. The angelic figure brings the prophet back to the entrance of the temple, and there, beneath the threshold of the eastern gate, water is flowing. At first, it is barely a trickle that wets the feet. The angelic figure measures 1,000 cubits to the east. The water now reaches the ankles. 1,000 more cubits. It reaches the knees. 1,000 more. It reaches the waist. 1,000 more. 4,000 cubits from the temple, approximately 2 kilometers. And the water has become a river that cannot be crossed on foot, deep enough only to swim. This river flows eastward, descends toward the Araba, and enters the Dead Sea. And there, the impossible happens. The Dead Sea is healed, its waters, of such extreme salinity that no living thing can survive in them, become fresh. On its banks grow fruit trees that never lose their leaves and bear fruit every month. Fishermen cast their nets from En-Gedi to En-Eglaim. Where there was no life before, there is now abundance. The text is unambiguous. This is not ordinary hydrology. The water flowing from the temple threshold and growing without any tributary until it becomes a mighty river is supernatural water. It is the presence of God becoming liquid and flowing into the world to transform what was dead. The last chapters of the vision contain a complete redistribution of the territory of Israel among the 12 tribes, with a sacred portion at the center and the holy city to the south. The city of chapter 48 receives a new name. The text ends with one of the most sober and powerful phrases in the Old Testament. And the name of the city from that time on shall be, "The Lord is there." It is no longer Jerusalem. It is no longer the name of any historical place. The name of the city is simply the declaration of God's permanent presence. The ultimate purpose of the entire monumental architectural project was not a building. It was the presence. The book of Revelation is the New Testament text most saturated with references to Ezekiel. The 4 living creatures of Revelation chapter 4 are the creatures of Ezekiel's Merkavah. The scroll John eats in Revelation 10 replicates the scroll Ezekiel eats in chapter 3. And the final vision of the New Jerusalem in Revelation 21 to 22 is a deliberate rewriting of Ezekiel 40 to 48. The 12 gates, with the names of the 12 tribes. The river of the water of life. The trees that bear fruit every month. The glory of God as the only light. All of it is in Ezekiel first, but with one fundamental difference. In Ezekiel, there is a temple of monumental dimensions. In Revelation, there is no temple at all. The Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple. The architecture Ezekiel spends 9 chapters describing in detail. John dissolves in a single statement. The presence of God needs no container. It is itself the space. Thanks for exploring with us today one of the most extraordinary texts in the Bible. If this journey through Ezekiel's temple opened questions about the architecture, the interpretations, or the relationship between Ezekiel and Revelation, write them in the comments. See you in the next one.